We are live! We are live!
Yay.
Welcome to Shooting the Shit. Here we go. So, this is a session that we were going to do last week and then everybody was ill. So we've rescheduled it, but I'm really excited about this one because this is kind of our bag. And as you can see, we have a very special guest on. It's also her bag. So welcome to Shooting the Shit. Today we are talking about sexism in search and tech. So a search, obviously SEO, Google, Bing, all of those search engines that you use on a daily basis, are they sexist? Are they racist? These are the big questions.
And you know, sorry, can I just say, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not in search or tech, so this doesn't relate to me, it really, really does, because it clouds your bias with the way that companies and search engines display results. So, you know, it's dead important.
It's really important. Well, this is the thing. I mean, if you do not use a search engine, I don't know. There must be a tiny proportion of people these days that do not use a search engine on a daily basis, if not, multiple times a day. So absolutely, you do not have to be in the industry for this to affect you. This is affecting everybody. So first of all, let's do introductions. So, Anjali, who are you? What's your name and where'd you come from?
I come from Kuala Lumpur, but I was originally born in India, and now I live here and I run a remote marketing agency.
Amazing, thank you. And Hannah, what's your name? Where'd you come from?
I'm Hannah. I'm from Grow Traffic. I am in sunny Sheffield.
And I'm Rachel, also from Grow Traffic. I'm in Bake-Up, and actually the sun has come out for the first time all day, so that's a miracle. The sun is shining on our fortuitous podcast.
Yeah, it's nice. I thought I was going to have to build a bloody ark earlier. It was absolutely throwing it down.
Yeah. Winter is most definitely upon us. Well, Anjali said that she was telling us before. Yeah, she's got glorious sunshine and lovely hot weather. So yeah, we shall move on from that. So first of all, as I say, we are here today to talk about sexism and algorithmic bias. So I will, in a little while, we will go on to explain sort of what algorithmic bias is and how it impacts everybody. But first of all, you know, the three of us here, we are women who work in the very male-dominated industry of search and SEO. Why it's so male-dominated, I don't know. I think it came up obviously from a very techie web dev background. You know, in the 90s, SEO was invented by spotty boys who sat in their back bedrooms and just leapt on their laptop. So it's always been associated with kind of very geeky types, very techie types, which obviously has been the domain of males for some time. In recent years, though, there are women coming into the industry. It's really good to see, and there's quite a lot of us now. But, we were just saying before we came on, each of us have been in it for a few years now. So, Hannah, have you experienced sexism in search and tech?
Lol. Once or twice. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Do you want me to go into specifics?
Yeah, just give us an example or a couple of examples.
So, I mean, there's kind of the low level stuff where people assume that you don't particularly know what you're talking about. So they just kind of will wait for a man to come in and take control of the conversation or check what you've said or, kind of correct you. I think that's one that I really enjoy is when I'm on a call with a client and they're correcting me and my knowledge and like, well, I am the person that you're paying to tell you this stuff. So why are you correcting me? Which is always fun, especially when you get to prove them wrong. But then also there's like just really kind of outspoken stuff. Like there's a lot of groups that run on Facebook for SEO, and they are an absolute cesspit of toxic masculinity and sexism, and to the point where I've left a lot of the ones that aren't women only, because every time you post something or you comment on something, you get either people explaining to you why you're wrong or just an absolute barrage of assault and abuse. Or like, it's just not a nice place to be. And there's a lot of kind of one-upmanship and well, dick swinging, I suppose, for want of a better word, where they're trying to prove each other wrong and no one can say anything without someone swinging and going, well, actually, I don't agree with that. So, but whereas the women's groups are very supportive and very lovely and very welcoming and wholesome and stuff. So
I saw a very specific example of this, and it was only a couple of weekends ago. It was in one of the big SEO Facebook groups that I'm sure we've all been in our time. I won't name and shame them, but there was a man had gone in. He'd posted a question. It was about Harrow. Does anyone use Harrow? And a couple of men had said, yes, I use it. Yes, I use it. And then a woman posted, use it frequently. And he said, thanks, but you didn't really answer my question. I'm like, she's just answered it in exactly the same way as the several men above, and you liked their comments, and now you're questioning her. And he essentially demanded from her evidence and reasons as to why she'd used Harrow and why she had that opinion. I thought, you didn't do that with the men. So, this is not just us going, oh, they feel like very passive aggressive places. They are, and they really are if you are a woman. And this is why women have created these women-only spaces, isn't it? So Anjali, you volunteered to be on this session today because you had some examples. So have you ever experienced sexism in search and tech?
Well, I'm a woman of color, so I experience sexism and racism all the time. You basically took the words out of my mouth, because the woman who commented I use it very frequently is a friend of mine, and she is really good at what she does.
Yeah.
And basically all the men were kind of condescending her for just saying, yeah, I use it. If instead the conversation was more constructive and asked her, hey, why do you use it frequently? What can you teach us about it? Everyone would have learned something. But instead it became all about, oh, hey, I'm a man. I know what I'm talking about, and you don't deserve to say anything. It's more about control than anything else, because otherwise you would do it to men too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And this is the thing, isn't it? It is subtle. And when we as women, we will pick up on a feeling, or we'll be like, that just feels like it's aimed against me. And quite often it's quite hard to pin that down. And if you showed it to somebody and said, this is an example, they'd be like, yeah, but that could be anything. That could be because they're older and you're younger, but that was a really obvious, specific, you absolutely could not mistake that example, could you? It was quite explicit. Yeah. And so you were telling me, Anjali, as well, that you used to work in an agency in America, didn't you? A digital marketing agency that was based in America. Were you discriminated against there because of your sex and color?
Not directly, but indirectly in a lot of ways. So one of the examples that comes to mind is the CEO of the company had a dog who died, and she went on an indefinite leave for about 10 days. And I was left holding the fort because I was the account executive. Mm-hmm. But the same thing happened to me when my friend died and I asked for a leave. And I was basically met with responses like, why did your team not do this? Instead of saying, hey, your friend died, you deserve some support, you should take some time off, you must be feeling this way. I was told, why didn't your team do this? I'm like, my team? Excuse me, you're the CEO.
Yeah, that's scary, isn't it?
Yeah. And at the same time, there were a lot of differences in pay as well. They paid people who were working there much, much more than me, who had the senior most position besides the CEO. So that's one thing. We always get the shorter end of the stick because we're not based in the US. So that's quite obvious.
And the other thing is, like you say, they would put that down to the fact that you are not based in the US, but actually it's down to that mentality of, cheap freelance labor. They're based over in some foreign country over there. We don't have to give them the same rights as us. And actually that's discrimination. That's just plain and simple discrimination. Because actually, if we look back at, your CV and your portfolio of work, it will be just as good as the people who are there, probably if not better, because you've had to work 10 times harder. And yet because you're seen as, it's almost like cheap Indian labor, isn't it? Pack them in and pay them peanuts, and the cost of living is much cheaper over there, so they don't need it. Well, actually, that you pay me for my expertise and my qualifications, and that's the end of it. So
it's not even necessarily about the kind of monetary value. It's the
respect.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's just like a total lack of respect. Yeah, I mean, a dog and a friend, obviously, like we don't need to point that out. That they're not the same. But yeah,
there were people below me in that rank who were paid more than me because I was not there.
Yeah.
How does the people who perform much worse but who are paid more? Because
and do you know what?
Men,
this is.
Sorry.
No, but this is endemic. No, Anjali, don't apologize, please. We all speak over each other, so it's absolutely fine. But there is absolutely, isn't there? There's this impression of, cheap labor, and that's endemic in tech. I mean, we all know, you get the emails from somebody in India saying, "Oh, we'll get you on page 1 of Google by next week," or whatever. But there absolutely is this impression throughout the whole of search, tech, digital marketing that people who are in the East or the Far East or whatever, they're not worthy of the same level of respect as those of us in the West who are much cleverer and much better, and we do things the correct way. And it's toxic, isn't it? Absolutely toxic.
It's exploitative, yeah.
It is exploitative. It is. Okay, we're getting off the subject, but personally as well, we see it on a daily basis in Grow Traffic, and we are based in the UK, but we have a male director in addition to Hannah and I, who are obviously female directors. So many times we will just, he will get a completely different response to the one that we get, and we have talked about that in the past on this show. But in fact, I was listening to another podcast the other day, and this woman was saying that she stopped signing her name as what her name was and started signing it as a man, and she said it just made her job 10 times easier. So I was wondering about even doing that. I thought, should I change my name to Richard and sign all my emails as Richard and just see what happens for a week? It would be interesting.
Yeah, I read an article from this bloke that said he worked with a woman that was the same level as him, same kind of experience in the company, but everything took her 10 times longer. And eventually they kind of had a conversation about it, because he was thinking she was just dead shit at her job, and they ended up swapping emails. I know he had to use her email or something while she was out or something. Anyway, he ended up responding to her emails as her, and he was like, people were just so hard going, like so obnoxious, so difficult to deal with. And I think like the thing that really gets me like upset, actually, it doesn't make me angry, it makes me really, really fucking sad, that it's the low level insidious sexism in our industry that is really demoralizing. You do a good job, you put in the effort, you put in the hours, you work hard for your clients, and ultimately you still come up against barriers because of something that you have absolutely no control over, and you have to work 10 times harder. And then when you try and pinpoint an explicit kind of instance, it's very difficult. I can think of maybe 5 examples of when it's happened very specifically and it's been really like obvious sexism. But every day you come up against something and you think, did that just happen because I'm a girl? Or like, is there something wrong with me? Or, men like the men in our company, past and present, have just kind of breezed through and would never question if that is their own ability, if that is because of their gender, if that is because of the client or whatever. It's just, it's just absolutely insidious, low level, sustained sexism that we've come up against.
I think the thing is, go on, Anjali. Yeah.
It's very common in B2B as well, when you especially dealing with SaaS companies, because they instantly assume, oh, it's SaaS, a woman must not know anything about it.
Yeah.
So you get unheard, interrupted, talked over, and sometimes just plain disrespected.
Yeah, and the thing is that this happens, and when we look at kind of the makeup, I mean, we are talking specifically today about search and tech, and we're not trying to make out that it is any worse in this industry than it is in any others. I know this low-level sexism is experienced by every woman in every sector and industry, but when you look at, say, for example, Silicon Valley, which is where a lot of our industry is led from, it is predominantly male. It's Elon Musk and it's Jeff Bezos. Larry Page, and it's all of those, entrepreneur men who have gone to Harvard and left and done something. And I find it really interesting at the moment. I don't know if any of you are following the case of Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos, but I find it really interesting how she was a woman that was blazing a trail. Now, she was not able to do that, whether Theranos is a con or a fraud or whatever it might be. She could not do any of that by herself. Surrounding her was an entire army of rich, white, middle-aged men. If you take Sunny Balwani out of the equation, he was a rich, coloured man, but he wasn't. Everybody else was white and rich and very of the American, establishment and patriarchy. They have supported every single thing she's made. They have backed her. They have put millions of pounds of money into it, and she is the fall guy because she is the woman at the heart of this equation, and not one single one of those rich white men are going to take any flight. They're all going to go, oh, I was conned by the pretty girl. Poor me. And I find that
voice.
Yeah,
the fact
exactly.
that she had to lower her voice in order to feel like she was going to be taken seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a whole minefield at work there. But I just think this story is so indicative of Silicon Valley, and then Silicon Valley, is indicative of the rest of the tech world. And it is absolutely led by white men. And so then...
Sorry, just to interject. I think it's really important that we point out that the sexism that I've experienced certainly hasn't always come from men. There are women out there that are also perpetuating this myth. I was on a call the other day with a woman, and I was talking about I was going to move her website over onto a different server, and she kept saying, well, when you speak to the guy that's doing the switch, and when you speak to the man that's switching it over, can you just ask them? Like, no, I will be doing it. Yeah, when you speak to him, can you just ask him? So, it's not men, it is the patriarchy.
It's the whole system. Yeah. And do you know what, Anjali, we were talking before we came on, weren't we, about, because Hannah and I think we've got it bad in Britain, which is actually quite, westernized, modernish society, supposedly. We're the epitome of the Enlightenment, aren't we? And yet you were saying it in Malaysia, in Singapore, in India, being a woman in that world, you've absolutely got it 10 times worse, haven't you? And like you said, it's not just from the men, it's from the women as well, the whole society.
100%. Because feminism at the end of the day is not about gender, it's about control. And we only control women traditionally. We don't try to control men. And it's evident even from women, because they'll be like what Hannah mentioned, there was an instance of where the woman kept repeating, talk to the guy. This is, I think every woman in SEO has faced this several times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, who's going to be the man?
Yeah.
And we also get we get lesser pay. We get clients that try to control us, that try to tell us, hey, I read this article, you might not know what you're talking about. Hey, here it is. Dude, you hired me to do a job. You can't send me articles. I'm supposed to send you articles.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Go on. Well, no, go on.
I had a client that used to send me articles explaining how to do SEO.
I was just going to say the same thing. Yeah. Do you know what? I've never thought about that, but several times we've had men send us articles about SEO. We had a client once, and I went into a meeting with him to do a review, and we'd been doing for the last 18 months content marketing on his website, and he gave me a book about content marketing and said, you might want to read this. So I was like, have you not looked at what this is literally what we've been doing for the last day. You can literally look on your website and see it. You don't need to teach this, mate. But it's you're right. Absolutely. I'd never thought about that as well. But so what I want to go on. Final point.
Sorry, I might be jumping ahead here, but I think as well, it's not that, our experiences as SEO agents within the field are sexist, but I think the sexism in search is so pervasive. So if you Google search, an actress, then you get actress name, body, kids, weight, workout routine, topless, and it's and if you search for an image of a doctor, it's a man. If it's an entrepreneur, it's a man. It's not just our experience as SEO agents, it's sexism
within the SEO agents as well, who are optimizing images and optimizing content and putting up content that perpetuates sexist attitudes.
Mm-hmm. That is exactly what I was going to say, Hannah. I was going to say, and why does our experience within search matter to you? If you are just the normal person doing your Google searches on a daily basis, it's precisely because of that. Because when we talk about algorithmic bias is simply a bias, so sexism, racism, ageism, that is built into an algorithm. And whilst these algorithms that we use now to run our search engines, whilst they are learning algorithms, they were initially designed and created and programmed by well-educated, rich, upper-class white men. And so those biases are hard baked into the way these algorithms work, and then they become perpetuated. So for example, if you are a young girl, and as Hannah says, if you Google doctor and all you get are images of men, you then think, well, that's obviously not, if I'm a young girl of color, I obviously can't be a doctor. That's not for me. Now, I do want to say that they've got better in recent years. So we did this session a year ago, and when we Googled woman, female, all of those kind of things a year ago, we got pages and pages and pages of young blonde women. That was it. White-skinned, blonde-haired women. Now, I've done this same Google. I went on an incognito search not an hour ago and searched for women, female, various other kind of related keywords. There are women of colour in there. So the algorithms have obviously taken note over the last 12 months, because I know there's a lot of books that have come out recently, which we are going to come on to mention. So they have got better, but if you look at those search results, look on images, they're still all very kind of Western looking. Even the women of colour still look very Western. They'll have straightened their hair. They're all tall, they're all thin, they're all very beautiful, they're all young. There's nothing, there's no extremes. So they've kind of got a bit better, but not very much. So how do we make that work harder? Hannah, you had a point first.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think sexism in stock photography has got a lot to do with it. So obviously algorithms are only as intelligent as what is entered into them. So when it comes to search results, it's what people like us put into the internet that comes up in the search results. And stock photography was horrifically sexist, racist, homophobic, ageist, everything.
And that's because they run on algorithms. They run on a search algorithm too. And this is the point. Yeah, every algorithm has the same biases baked into it.
But I think as well, it is... Oh, go on.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I'm based in Malaysia and I would want to put Malaysian people on my website. I couldn't even find images of them, so I had to use whatever was available for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we built a website for a hospital in somewhere. Where was the hospital?
It was in Pakistan.
Yeah. And like trying to find images of non-white doctors was just like impossible. But anyway,
what you could find, just interestingly, there were a few pictures of non-white doctors working in the NHS, so Asian, Indian, Pakistani doctors working in the NHS. And anything else, you couldn't get a Pakistani doctor working in a hospital. You could get like an Indian doctor working in a mud hut or something. There was no doctor, no photos of Indian doctors working in Indian hospitals. It was like, oh, you want a doctor, an Indian doctor in a native setting? Oh, they must be working in a pit. And it's like, they were like, oh my God, seriously, what century in? Anyway, sorry, carry on, Hannah.
But I do think, I think the algorithms on stock photography is caught up, and I think Black Lives Matter made a huge impact on that. Suddenly, the algorithms made an effort, I think, to promote the work of people of color and show non-white people in the search. And I think that's probably why it's now entering into the SERPs more than it was, rather than Google changing their algorithm to be less racist and sexist. But again, I don't want to fall into the trap. Like Donald Trump is always saying, Google's so biased against me because all the articles that are out on the internet are saying I'm horrible. Like, no, it is just because all the articles out on the internet are saying that you're horrible. Like, that's just how the algorithms work.
But the problem with this is, though, and this is why it's so insipid and why it's so hard to get rid of, because it just keeps breeding the same thing. So if we only think, women can be young and beautiful, and we think that's what people want to see because that's what all the images on the internet are. So we will build websites with pictures of young, beautiful women on. I mean, I Googled women in business and business women. And again, that was all very young, very women dressed in black and white suits, pencil skirts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, perfect looking women too.
Exactly. And this is it. It perpetuates because then we think, that's what people must respond to. That's what they want to see. So we do more. And this is it's the same with kind of advertising and the algorithms that are used around that, isn't it? So I don't know. I mean, what other thing? I mean, besides women of color, you never see a trans woman. You never see a woman wearing a hijab. You definitely never see older women. Older women. Or if there is an older woman, it's a very beautiful older woman with that nice kind of silvery grey hair. You never see a woman in a rain mac, do you?
Dr. Scholl sandals.
Yeah. Anjali, you look like you wanted to say something. What were you going to say?
I was going to go back to the stock photography example because Hannah mentioned that when you Googled doctors, you found Indian doctors in huts. So being from India, that's what actually people overseas tend to believe. Oh, you guys don't have proper hospitals because all photos I see of Indian doctors are in huts. Or in villages. And this kind of shit is perpetuated by algorithms all the time because it's not just about SEO, it's also about what's shown to you. It's bias. If it's bias, it's going to be bias for everyone. And it's going to just perpetuate that bias again and again and again and again.
Yeah. And this is why we're in this vicious cycle, because then we think, everybody in India or everybody in Malaysia, they're living in a mud hut and so therefore we can pay them less and they're only living on a bowl of rice every day. So they don't need to be paid. Singapore is one of the most developed countries in the world. I mean, it's phenomenal. It rivals London, and yet we think of it's in the Far East. They're obviously all, eating with their hands. Hannah, go on. What did you want to say?
I love eating with my hands.
I eat everything with my hands, actually.
And also I think we fall into the trap of thinking, oh, the internet has made the world smaller. You can find your tribe now. You can discourse with people. Like, this conversation would never have happened without the internet. So it gives you the impression that actually you are becoming more kind of global citizen. But I don't think we are. I think we are kind of the blinkers are put on and we're just fed one perspective of women, men, people from different countries, people of different genders, and actually we're not seeing a cross section of society. We just think that we are, and so the biases that we hold are perpetuated and self-perpetuating.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. It's interesting that you mentioned that because a lot of people don't even know what algorithm means. So they think this is supposed to be a magical buzzword and tech is fair because it's not human. But the fact is, algorithm is just data. It's just patterns that some engineer fed to a machine or a piece of code and decided, okay, based on these factors, you're going to classify people. And based on that, if I'm the engineer and I have existing biases towards Indians or women, I'm going to code that into my system as well. Or maybe even worse, I'm going to use examples that unintentionally discriminate against women. There's tech world is just literally riddled with examples of algorithm bias.
Absolutely. Go on. Yeah.
Recently, I read an article that Black women are being identified as pigs by algorithms. Facial recognition systems actually thought Black women were pigs because of the data set that was fed to them. So it impacts a lot more than we think. It's not just about the issue of what representation we get in searches. It's also about the consciousness we create around ourselves.
Absolutely.
If we constantly see wrong perspectives, we're going to believe they're true.
And the other thing is like about it's not just about, you know, our bias. That's a really dangerous position to be in, where people are being, like, you know, classified, for want of a better word, wrong. And as we move into more of an Internet of Things based world, if there's a huge proportion of people who are accessing IoT devices incorrectly, or being categorized incorrectly by IoT devices, that's really fucking dangerous. That's debilitating. You know, if you go to the cash machine and they don't recognize, you know, if facial recognition is using cash machines and they don't recognize your face, then you can't get your cash out. Or, you know, there's a million examples where this is going to be really problematic because unconscious bias is just been programmed in.
Well, the other thing is, we were listening to somebody the other day who was, Hannah and I, he was talking about the exponential growth of artificial intelligence. And the thing is, you know, now it does move so quickly that we put in an equation at the beginning with a tiny amount of unconscious bias in it. And that will spend 24 hours learning, improving, evolving, because they are learning algorithms. You know, they learn at a speed that we cannot even comprehend. How do we know how much that tiny 0.1% of algorithmic bias that was put in at the beginning might become 90% of algorithmic bias by the end? You know, that's a bad mathematical equation because I don't do maths, but you know, that would just become amplified and run away. And the point is that, you know, we've got then no control over that. Like Hannah said, you know, black women being classified as pigs might have started out as one tiny simple mistake in the maths at one point, and all of a sudden that learning algorithm has gone and it's equated, you know, this color skin must be this color animal, and we don't know how it's got there, therefore we don't know how to stop it. I don't know, I genuinely don't know how we stop it, but it is terrifying when you think of it in those terms, isn't it?
It's actually not 0.1% error, it's 35% error rate against black women. 35%
wow.
of all facial recognition systems were found to be biased against black women. 35% is a lot.
Hell.
Yeah. So that is a lot. Absolutely. Yeah, that is.
And there are real life consequences to this, because there are already systems that define who gets mortgage loans and who gets jobs based on these algorithms. And if the bias is so big, then how do you guarantee that in a world where everything is fragmented, everyone's going to get access to healthcare, jobs, and even same rights? You can't do that.
Absolutely. And I do just want to quickly, you know, you're absolutely right. And I think this is the thing that people don't realize, that it's something like 30 to 40% of jobs that we do now will be obsolete in the very near future, because they will be being done by robots and AI and things. And absolutely, you know, if you've got a robot, an AI, an algorithm that is deciding whether or not you get a job, get a house, get a car, and that is working it out on these completely biased data sets, then, you know, we are removing any level of fairness from the world, aren't we? The other thing that I think is worrying is when this is applied to ads. So there was an article that was on the BBC just last week, I think, that was talking about because we now can go onto Facebook or Google or wherever, and we can pay for our ads. And when you know, if you've ever done this, you will know this, but what you can do is you can narrow down the data set. So you can say, I want this ad, you know, for a new job, and I want this to only be shown to, the cat. I want this only to be shown to, not the cat, to people of between the ages of 20 and 25, or people who live in Birmingham, or people who are white. And you can't explicitly say white, but you can pretty much say, you know, of this religion, who like this sort of thing, who go to these sorts of places. So you are, in essence, you know, whilst it's in this country, so certainly in a job description, I want a woman aged 23 who's white, but you can effectively now do that with your ads. So again, and it doesn't even need to be as serious as jobs, you know, we can advertise anything and narrow it down. And that means only certain people are seeing ads. we're then going down a whole nother rabbit hole of people being excluded from the workplace, from life, from being able to buy things. It's truly terrifying, actually, isn't it?
Oh, the world is horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's just a representation of the biases we already have in society and just programmed into tech. So it's macro level now.
Yeah.
And
there are real life consequences to this.
Yeah. And I think like things like that as well enable people to pursue conscious bias. Like, if you are able to say, actually, I don't want to show this advert to men, or I don't want to show this advert to Muslims or Sikhs or whatever, then like that just covertly enables people to be just awful humans.
And again, people think this is fair. So let's take, for example, an advert for an acting job. So, you would, if you wanted to find an actor 10, 15 years ago, you would put your advert in the Stage magazine, for example. Anybody in the world was able to go and buy that. And you couldn't say, I want a specific person. So,
actually, you could. So
you can in
HR law, you can in acting. But pick a different example.
Well, no, but what I was going to say was, again, we are going down. Anybody could have accessed that ad beforehand, whereas now you won't even see the ad. So people think like, oh, it's much more democratic because it's online. People don't realize it. I'm having this conversation constantly with people because they say, oh, well, I created this Facebook group, so everybody in the Facebook group will see it when I say, we're putting this event on or whatever. They won't. A tiny fraction of people, even if they've liked your page or joined your group, will ever even see that. So we have this illusion that we are being more democratic and we're getting our information out to more people and everybody's able to see it. But actually, because of the way those algorithms will sort out for people what they see, they won't even see it in the first place. They won't even know it's there. And then we're back into this, we're not even putting opportunities in front of people and they don't know it. So how do you even try and get fairness when you don't even know what's happening? Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So one interesting thing we all can try even at our homes is looking into each other's Facebook profiles. If you're sitting next to me, you and I could have the same friends. You and I could be from the same house, same county, and still see completely different results based on our worldviews.
Yeah.
So if I'm a feminist, I'm going to see if I type women's rights, I'm going to see how women's rights affect the world. But somebody who's not a feminist is going to see women's rights destroy the world. Feminists deserve to die.
Yeah.
And algorithm just kind of exemplifies it so much more. In fact,
and it amplifies it. Sorry, go on. Yeah, carry on.
There was an example of Microsoft's AI Tay that they released in 2014, who they wanted to just teach conversational English. So, for example, they wanted to learn how do people talk with each other in regular ways. But what they found was within 24 hours that it turned out to be anti-Semitic and it was completely racist and sexist.
Yeah.
So absolutely. When it started out, it said stuff like, oh, humans are so cool. I'm so excited to learn about them. And then it went from that to Hitler was right. Jews deserve to be killed. And feminists deserve to be burnt in hell. And they had to shut the program down completely because of how racist it was.
But that's like goes back to what Rachel was saying, where like one teeny tiny instance, like a 0.1% of bias will exponentially grow by 100%. Kind of 1,000 times into a massive chunk of awfulness and bias and racism and sexism and everything else.
And that's it. It's back to that. Those algorithms, they are learning algorithms and they learn so much quicker than we can ever get. So, in normal human interaction, we would see that somebody was going down that route. We would interject and we would stop it. Whereas with the algorithms, they have learned so quickly, they're on generation 3 or 4 before we've even realized what they're doing. And there is a theory, isn't there, that in any kind of chat room classroom or conversation or anything, within a certain period of time, or, you know, there's like an equation that works out how long it will take until somebody says Hitler was right. And essentially those algorithms got to that point in less than 24 hours, whereas with humans, it takes them, you know, several months. And yeah, it is.
It's context as well. Like we've said Hitler was right 3 times now on this podcast, is like as a way to make an example against, you know, the algorithms. But if you were an algorithm, you would have just heard 3 instances, 3 different people, 3 different voices saying that phrase. So like, right, what can we do about it? Because I feel really sad.
I mean, I genuinely do not have answers. I think the main thing for me is that we alert people, and this is why we have come back to this conversation for a second time, and we'll continue to come back to it, because I think people still do not realize the extent to which their algorithms, their feeds, their social media feeds, everything that they see is within their control. They are being shown what the algorithms think they want to see, which means you can change it. So search for different things, you know, make sure you are looking. If you see that algorithmic bias, if you look for something to do with women and you only see white women, call that out. Do some searches for women of color, women of different religions, women in different professions, because that will then teach the algorithm what you actually wanted to see. So I think just making people aware of that gives them the power to start searching for different things and change it. I don't know, Anjali, do you have any suggestions other than despair?
I mean, unless we consciously tell ourselves that everything we see on the internet doesn't necessarily mean it's true, we're not gonna change any perspectives, because these algorithms are designed to show you exactly what you want to hear. So if you are a racist, they're going to show you racist content over and over again, so that it reaffirms that. So unless you make a conscious choice, hey, I'm going to expose myself to a different point of view just for the heck of it, they're going to show you exactly what you want to see. So that also creates a problem of people living in different realities, because we are literally being fed different information. So how do you bring people on the same page ever?
I was absolutely stunned when Brexit happened over here, when Britain voted to leave the European Union. I was absolutely gobsmacked, because in my sphere of the internet, in my little corner of the internet, nobody wanted Brexit. Nobody was going to vote Brexit. Everyone was voting Remain. Everyone saw that it was a massive mistake. And you know, we can't get fizzy water now, which is awful for my daughter because it's all she drinks, and we have got none. And that's like the worst that anybody is having of Brexit. But so it's true. Like, you do just live in an echo chamber, and I think, do I want to expose myself to racists and Brexiteers? Probably not, but maybe I ought to. Maybe I just ought to get off social media and speak to people.
Well, no, but I have made a very conscious decision. There were some people that I did remove, but I did have a feeling that Brexit was going to go the way it was, because I hadn't put myself in an echo chamber, and I am purposely friends. And loads of people used to say to me, they were like, "Oh my God, Rachel, why have you got so many racist friends? And why have you got so many fascist right-wing friends?" And the very reason I have them is because I need to know what those people are saying and thinking and feeling and sharing. But yeah, it's hard. It is hard, because you do see a feed full of negativity quite often, and it's quite hard to rationalize it.
I don't want to validate those feelings and those opinions by being a part of that and giving an extra platform, giving an extra pair of eyes to that fucking bullshit rhetoric. And so I just think, no, I'm not engaging with you. Go into your own light. I wouldn't stand for that if it was face to face. So why should I?
And this is the ironic thing. So this is a very good example of the algorithmic bias. So I had all of these friends that were posting this very right-wing, very racist comment, you know, immigrants go home and we don't want foreign people over here. And I could not let it pass. So I would always comment on their racist posts and say, this is not acceptable, or actually here's the truth, or whatever. Facebook doesn't know that I am putting a negative comment on that, or it didn't at the time anyway. It's getting slightly better at it. All it saw was, oh, Rachel's engaging with this racist content.
Exactly.
This must be what Rachel wants to see. So it would then show me, you know, why don't you join this Britain First group? Why don't you join this BNP group? And that's exactly it. And I, you know, I obviously was able to say, no, that's not what I want. And if for anyone who doesn't know, there are 3 buttons in every advert you see or every piece of promoted content. There are 3 buttons in the top right. You can click on that and you can say, do not show me this type of content again. And it will say, why? Is it not what you're interested in? Do you not like it? Blah, blah, blah. Keep doing that. You only need to do it a few times and the algorithm will learn, actually, this is not what you want. But yeah, that was a perfect example of that, dichotomy in action. That's what it thought I wanted to see. That's what it showed me. And I had to actively educate the algorithm that, no, this is not the type of content I want to see. And this is exactly how people's feeds are within their control, but they just don't know it.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, so my role within Grow Traffic involves building a lot of websites. So as going back to what can we do about this, what I'm going to do is consciously put on photos that show a more diverse range of women in particular. Although I did this once, I built a website for a client and I put on a range of photos. It was a workplace, it was like a B2B company. They were talking about people in the workplace, professional people. So I just put on people of a range of different backgrounds, different colors, different ethnicities. And they told me that I had made it too political. It was, could I take off some of the black people and put on more white people, please?
Yeah.
They told you to take off. Oh, I've frozen.
Yeah, go on, you're back.
Oh, they told you to take off all of the people of colour and use only white people because they were their primary demographic. And
we did London.
They're in London, but we did it. And I'm really ashamed of that decision. I feel really bad that we listened to that and did it. And it was that was not an ideal client in the end. And we should have realised then, shouldn't we?
At that point,
anyway,
we should have gone, what the fuck, get lost.
The other thing I think it's really important for all of us to do is just encourage more women to come into STEM, especially to search and tech. And this is something I'm really passionate about. And Anjali, I know, you are. We met through one of the female-only SEO groups on Facebook. So I know you are also doing the same. But we absolutely, as women, we have to build each other up, don't we? We have to say, we've just spent 45 minutes moaning about how sexist this industry is, but actually it's brilliant. And it's really interesting and there's loads of great things. So, if you are a woman, come into it.
I think, for me, when, a while ago, I was in one of these awful, masculine SEO groups on Facebook, and someone said, what's one thing that you wish you could change about the SEO industry? And people were saying, the frequency of updates. And I, the only woman, said the sexism, and that was it. And oh my God, it was like a can of worms had gone off. Like the amount of men, it started off like, what do you mean the sexism? There's no sexism in SEO.
There is no sexism.
Exactly.
There isn't, and it was to the point where I was getting rape threats and the moderator shut off the comments, and it was vicious. It was really vicious. And it went on all night until a moderator finally got hold of it. And I went over into the Sisters in SEO group and said, girls, this is happening. I need your help. And everybody flooded that comment section with positivity, feminism, support for me. It was amazing the way that everyone just came on and drowned them out and started backing up my assertion that the industry was sexist. And it was such a men versus women comment section where all the women were going, this is ridiculous. And all the men were going, you bloody women. So that for me just showed that there is solidarity in search, and it does come from men. And I think sometimes they don't see it. So Dali, who works with us, has become, I think, a lot more of a feminist since working with us because he has seen it firsthand. He's been on meetings where he's repeated what I've said and the client has accepted it, for example, and he said afterwards that was awful.
Well, he jumped on that comment, the example we were talking about at the beginning on that other SEO group. He did jump on and defend the woman and challenge the man and said, why have you challenged her and nobody else? So we as women need to be championing each other, but we also need the men to recognize that this is not a criticism against them, but we want their support. Please just back us up because we've spent donkey's years backing you guys up. So
and now we're going to pull you down.
Yes.
I think they just want to whenever a woman comments something, whether it's an SEO groups or whichever groups in the world, if you have a voice that's different from theirs, they will not try to hear you. They'll try to shut you down. Like, stop, bitch, stop, bitch, stop, bitch.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, talk to me, make logical points. I can shut you down that way too. But what you're going to do is call me shit and try to shut me down that way.
Or call me ugly, or call me fat. Like, nothing about my work, just about my physical appearance.
Or you obviously need a shag or something.
You just, just a miserable, ugly, fat woman who doesn't know what she's talking about.
My husband tried to defend me in one of these conversations in a group once, and the amount of shit he got for it.
Really?
He was called a pussy. My husband was called a pussy. He was said, "Oh, you are whipped because you want sex from her," kind of shit. I'm like, what's wrong with the world?
What is wrong
absolutely.
with the world?
But well done on your husband for standing up for you. Yeah, well done for him. And this is all we need. This is, like I said before, we don't want nobody has to go out into battle for us, but literally just back us up and accept when we say something, we might know what we're talking about. Sometimes we don't know what we're talking about. Sometimes we're completely and utterly bullshitting it, but 90% of the time, we do know what we're talking about.
Just like everyone, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to move us on because we have been going way over. So I have two final questions for you. So the penultimate thing I would like to ask you, this is a massive subject, as anybody who is listening to us can probably tell. There is so much we haven't even touched on here. Anjali, any suggestions for where people can go if they want to read, watch, listen to anything else?
If you want to understand more about algorithm bias, you need to watch Coded Bias on Netflix. It's amazing.
Coded Bias.
It talks about everything we talked about.
It is brilliant.
Is that the one that goes into Cambridge Analytica? Is that one? Yeah. Oh God, it was terrifying. There's a TED Talk as well that I mentioned quite a lot. It's an old one. It's called something like the curly fries conundrum, and it's a data scientist talking about how Facebook knows if you like curly fries based on your political allegiance and vice versa. And like that, I recommend that if you go and search like TED Talk curly fries. She's a really incredibly eloquent data scientist.
And big data. I mean, we haven't even touched on big data, have we? But people think they're anonymous, and yet big data is scarily accurate at what it will predict about your life. So it's
how
phenomenal.
It can control the world. I mean, I'm just ready to go and get some Molotov cocktails going and burn it all to the ground. It's just horrendous, isn't it?
Okay, so I have a couple of suggestions of books. One of them is hang on, let me find my list. I will put all of this in the chat, by the way. Algorithms of Oppression. That is one of the best ones. I actually listened to the audiobook, but that's one of the best ones by Sophia Noble. There are a couple of others. As I say, I will put them in the chat afterwards, along with links to where you can find them, and we'll put all of the recommendations that we've made in there. Final point, please, to leave us on that's not too depressing. Hannah, have you got a final thought?
Not one that's not too depressing. No, I think just call it out. Just keep fighting the good fight, girls. And if you need backup, come and find us. Find your tribe and we'll support you.
Absolutely. Anjali, any final words from you?
Same. Just find more women-centric groups, support each other, because that's where you can actually find that level of support. Men tend to shut you down where you're in a co-ed space with them. So find women-only groups.
Absolutely.
Contribute to them. And just learn to pick your battles and don't take everything that other people think about you to heart.
That's true.
Yeah.
Those are both excellent pieces of advice. Yeah, pick your battles and don't take it personally. Absolutely. Also, those are very good rules for general life and parenting, essentially, and having horses as well. But excellent. And I would just say, don't forget that this is within your control. You control your algorithm, and also, if you have daughters that are interested in STEM, or nieces or granddaughters or whatever, please encourage them. They will be welcome. They will find a community. Whilst as I say, we've just spent almost the last hour moaning. we are in some phenomenally strong, powerful, supportive female communities for women in tech and SEO. And they are brilliant. And there are conferences and we're getting on panels and, you know, we talk to each other and we ask each other questions and get non-passive aggressive answers. So yeah, it is actually a brilliant supportive community. So I can thoroughly recommend it. And that's it. So thank you so much to my guests today, Anjali, and to Hannah, as always. It's been lovely, and thank you. Yeah. If you have been watching on the Facebook Live, thank you very much. And there were a couple of comments, so thank you for engaging. If you are listening back to this as a podcast, or if you're watching it back on YouTube, please do leave us a comment, subscribe, like us, tell your friends about us. If you've got some constructive criticism, we're always here to listen to it because we want to get better. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. God knows what we're talking about, but it'll probably be a feminist rant. In the meantime, go and search for women of colour on algorithms and teach them that that's what we want to see.
And invite your friends to the Facebook group.
Yes, do that as well. Yeah, and it's not just for women
in tech.
Yeah, more women in tech. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Time to wave. See you soon.